Greetings and welcome to the Transform Podcast. This is episode 100. We finally hit the century mark, and it is Wednesday, January 4th, 2023. Happy New Year to everybody listening. Happy New Year to everybody catching up to the podcast whenever you catch up to it, wherever you are in 2023. And we have a very, very, very special episode today because for the first 99 times, I was alone on the podcast, and today I have a very special guest. It's my colleague Mike, who is located on the other side of the world. So thanks to him for being up late and joining episode 100 today. Super excited to have him here. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him to give you guys a brief introduction. And then Mike and I are going to talk about some of the prevailing issues in social and digital marketing that we see going on and we see kind of heading into 2023 that you guys should be aware of it. So, Mike, over to you.
Thanks, Chris. Before anything else, congratulations on getting us to the first 99. And hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here. As Chris mentioned, my name is Mayank. I am located in Thailand, currently traveling in my home country in India, and I take care of the digital side of things for Transform. We handle clients in the US, in Thailand, in India, Canada, and Singapore. And it's been a fantastic journey with the podcast and Chris so far. And I'm so happy that I finally got a chance to be on here.
Outstanding. So just for our audience sake, what's interesting is Mike and I had never met in person until November 2022, after working together for a couple of years almost. And so that was very exciting. We got to do that just a couple months ago. So very happy that got checked off the list in the prior year. The other quick note for the audience is obviously we maintained for a very long time pretty brisk publication pace, two episodes a week, kind of slowed to about one a week late in the year around the November timeframe. And then we didn't have a chance to publish in December, just a combination of organizational projects and holidays and personally illness. So it was kind of a bit of a slower note for us there at the end of the year. It's obviously not the pace that we like to set. So we're looking to turn that around right here at the beginning of 2023. So just kind of want to get that out of the way. So Mike, basically, as you and I talked coming into this episode, there's a lot of fluctuation, as there probably always has been and always will be in this space. The digital marketing, social media marketing space. But some things kind of, I think for you and I, rose to the surface in terms of the notability, I guess you could say, of these either platforms or issues or formats in terms of what's working well, what our audience should kind of be aware of and what they should be tracking in terms of if they're doing marketing, if they're looking for someone to do it for them, what types of things should they be aware of and be looking out for. And I think one of the things that really, and these are in no particular order, but one of the big stories late in 2022 was the future of Twitter. Now, on this podcast, I think I've done a handful of episodes talking about Twitter, how it could be used, everything from for listening purposes to really dial into your audience and what they're talking about, to using it for audio purposes, like using Twitter Spaces to kind of like augment a podcast or even test out a podcast or podcast topics, all the way to one of the recent updates they made in, I believe it was October, when they went very multimedia, where you can attach, videos and pictures and GIFs all in the same tweet. They were seemingly trying to compete with some of these other shorter form, snack-sized kind of platforms. So kind of interested in your general thoughts, on Twitter's viability for the audience that we interact with, that you have exposure to, and then B, where you see it going. Is it, in terms of the change in leadership there and the change in some of its functionality, what your thoughts are on that outlook. So just want to kind of throw that out to you and get your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. So let me preface this by saying that I'm slightly biased towards Elon Musk. So just whatever I say, take that with a grain of salt. Yeah, you're right. There's been a lot of fluctuation. And if you actually, for our listeners who have been following how Twitter has been progressing, they have been sort of all over the place with their strategy, especially the last few years. So they've almost been playing catch up, where whenever video started getting popular, they wanted to jump into video. And then when audio and podcasts and things like that became popular during COVID, then they wanted to jump on that bandwagon. So they have been trying a few things even before the whole Elon Musk situation happened, and they're still trying to find their foothold in the larger scheme of things. And obviously, this has accelerated the process and sort of shaken things up a lot. And the real answer, at least the honest answer from my end, is that I don't really know what's going to happen with them. But for in terms of what advice I would give to our listeners would be the fact that it is always good to be an early bird if something's going to blow up. And again, with the bias that I have for Elon, I think it is more likely than not that there would be some sort of success that they hit somewhere down the road. And when that happens, you want to be on that bus. So even for the sake of being able to ride the wave when that happens, if we are keeping our Twitter channels alive, if we're posting content, interacting with people, I think it's going to be a worthwhile investment of time and energy. And there's very little downside to that. So if you're doing well on Twitter and Twitter for whatever reason happens to shut down, there's not too much downside to it, but there's a big upside in case you're an early bird in a platform that really accelerates its growth. So those are my 2 cents in terms of what people should be doing.
That's a really interesting point you brought up about Elon Musk. Here in the United States, it's a pretty divisive topic, maybe not the most divisive we've seen in the public sphere over the last few years, but I would definitely say that there's strong opinions about him. You don't see a whole lot of people sort of sitting out that conversation. But where I agree with you, wherever somebody falls out on that debate, is that there's a track record of taking on, big projects, big vision, and being generally successful. I wouldn't obviously say anything near perfection, but somebody who seems to be able to kind of get the job done on a grand scale. And I think that, for our audience to run to say that there's promise in Twitter for them and to leave it because of some of the recent leadership changes, I think would probably be rash, just a personal opinion there. But definitely something to keep an eye on, definitely something to not stop paying attention to, I would say, but to use the platform as best they can for themselves, while sort of understanding that there could be more fluctuation to come. I guess that's probably the best way I would put that. In terms of, obviously a lot of what I talk about on these podcast episodes is geared towards how I understand the U.S. market and, how individuals might be participating in that market. What do you, from an Asia perspective, are you seeing any sentiment or a different take, if you will, on Twitter and how it's being used? Are there any ways that you think it's being used that's a little bit different from the United States or anything like that from your perspective?
So that's an interesting question. For Southeast Asia, I think Twitter is not big enough to. It doesn't have a big enough footprint in Thailand and neighboring countries where we operate. So from that perspective, this is almost just distant news. So, but the story is a little different in India because a lot of the tech team that got laid off was actually located in India. So it has been not only a social discussion, but a political discussion here because there was a big chunk of the workforce suddenly relieved overnight. So there's definitely turmoil here, and there's a giant Twitter user base in India, which again is primarily using it for like news updates and things like that, which has been Twitter's strong point. But in terms of change in user behavior, I think there is some uncertainty. So some people are at least pulling back their ad spendings here in India. But other than that, just the general user base is still active. So people who use it in their daily lives are still using it. But I'm sure it impacted their ad revenues and general political sentiment against them.
Gotcha. So, no, definitely appreciate that, Mark. That had been a topic that, particularly in later episodes of podcasts, had covered on a few occasions, given some things going on there. So super helpful to get your take on that. I think another big topic that definitely I would say has been big for a while now, but was getting even more multidimensional at the very conclusion of 2022 here in the States is TikTok. So, TikTok, uh, I think just, the brief history there, it kind of started to really poke its head out in 2019, 20, and the pandemic kind of really exploded it here. Um, in terms of people, who are kind of cooped up and just kind of discovering the platform and using it for different purposes. And then that evolution of using it from pure entertainment to really becoming a little more educational, a little more business oriented there, is kind of how it progressed. And now we sort of finished out 2022 here in the States with the threat that certain concerns about the app, certain concerns about who owns the app, would eventually cause it to be shut down here. And again, whether that's posturing or whether that's a real possibility remains open. But would really be curious about your thoughts, A, on how you view TikTok, particularly from the Asia perspective, B, the sense you have of the type of content that's going on there, the short form content, its role going forward, and then C, if you think, given your own experience with this, potentially whether there actually will be a ban in the United States, if you wanted to make any predictions about that. But I'm definitely curious of your thoughts on TikTok.
Absolutely. So I'll answer your second question first. So the short form content that I think it started being popular with Vine, and then TikTok really took that over and turned it into something that nobody could have imagined. So from that perspective, I think that sort of content is here to stay, at least in the near horizon. And there's brands getting on board, all sorts of content creators doing everything from entertainment to education to politics on these short form videos. So there's a very diverse content production base, and also a very diverse audience base that is sort of heavily consuming this content. So this type of content is not going anywhere anytime soon. But coming to your first question about just TikTok being banned and how things look here. So again, there's a very interesting dichotomy between the two countries that I spend most of my time in, that would be Thailand and India. Thailand is very TikTok crazy right now, much like the US. So there's a lot of content being created, a lot of ad money being spent, a lot of just video views, things of that nature. India, on the other hand, did pull the trigger on banning TikTok a long while ago. And again, it was due to the data security concerns that the app presents, and the ownership, and how closely the China government was involved with them. So here, the biggest benefactors of that decision were definitely Facebook and YouTube, where all those content creators who were creating a ton of content on TikTok immediately switched over to Facebook Reels and YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels overnight. And so that content is still available, but on a different channel now, and it's still being consumed a lot. So if the US goes ahead and sort of does ban TikTok, I think Zuckerberg and Sundar would not be complaining. So yeah, so I think it's I don't really know the politics there and how the relationship with China is, but in India it has been sort of slightly hostile the last few years. So I think that resulted in the government being more proactive about banning banning TikTok. So if that happens in the US, I think it would not hamper the creators as much as it would benefit just other channels that would then host that content.
Absolutely. So Mike, one of the things that comes to mind when we talk about TikTok and potential audience members that we have, who are, let's say, in the e-commerce space, or trying to sell products or maybe even services over some of these platforms.
Mm-hmm.
What is your perspective on TikTok's role as far as that goes? Is it one of the better places they could be trying to do that? And if so, obviously they got banned, and that rug gets pulled out from under them, the implications of that. Or is there a better place where let's say it takes some of the edge off of this threat, or this possibility that this channel could be lost to certain members of our audience?
That's an interesting question, because even without the threat of the platform being banned, we always advocate users or advertisers or content creators to be multi-channel, because what works for one brand and one type of consumer might not work for the other. So even without the shadow of the ban looming on top, I think we would still advise people to just produce content that is cross-platform, and the impending ban, or at least the possibility of a ban, amplifies that need, where even if TikTok is successful, which it is, the organic reach that it gives, and in terms of the ads as well, it's pretty competitive in terms of the cost per 1,000 views, cost per clicks. It's very competitive with Facebook. So you continue using Twitter, ride the wave while it lasts, but be prepared for any eventuality, and just have content on other channels. And even if you are uber successful on TikTok, and it does not get banned, even then it is in your best interest to have your content up on other channels, because it then allows you to hit other audiences that might not be using TikTok.
That's a great point. You mentioned before, Mike, about Facebook and Google not minding this possibility. Facebook in particular, and I think I covered this in an episode, probably somewhere in the fall, it was the latter part of the year. But Facebook had suffered some serious financial, losses, or sort of a data dump, if you will, there at the end of the quarter. I think it was in September, October timeframe, where they really, looked like they were kind of on their heels a bit. And when we look at to your point, when we look at other platforms, we look at other ways to get content out there. Do you really see, from the guys that I follow, and we know who I follow the most if you've been following this podcast, but there's a real sense that Facebook is reemerging as an interesting alternative, even for some of the demographics in the audience that maybe never even started with Facebook. They started with Instagram, in the 2010s. What is your take on Facebook's viability at this point? Is it worth, let's say somebody wasn't listening to us as well as we'd like them to, and wasn't as multi-channel as we'd like them to. Is Facebook one of the places that they should look? And if so, how would you advise them to use that? How would they go about, let's say they've never really used it before. How would you advise them to go about actually engaging with that platform, with the publishing content there?
All right. So the short answer being, the short answer to your first question being, it is, yes, it is still, despite the fact that they've been hurting a lot financially in terms of their revenues falling, and then the shareholders not being too happy about the spend that they've been doing on Meta, but it's still second to Google. Perhaps is the not perhaps it is the biggest ad platform on the planet. So it would be foolish not to make use of that, even if it is a slightly diminished version of what it used to be. It still reaches a very big percentage of the global population. So there's no way to undermine that. So yes, I think it's definitely a feasible platform. What we do need to be aware about is how the consumption of content is changing. So we earlier spoke about the short form content and how Reels and short form video is what people are consuming that these days. So I think if we are trying to make use of Facebook, if you're an established user or if you're a new entrant who's just setting up their Facebook account, in both cases, if you want to promote your brand, I think short videos, Reels, content in that format is the way to go. But the real power of Facebook comes in when you start advertising, and especially if it's a B2C product. Not saying that it's not effective for B2B, but if you're in a B2C product or service segment, then even at this stage, everything said and done, it's still a no-brainer to be on Facebook.
Okay, yeah, I would say that's pretty strong endorsement of trying to get the audience to see it as a viable alternative if they don't already. And I totally agree with you. You simply have too many users there. You just have too much functionality that's been built up over a long period of time there, and a user base that's grown pretty I don't want to say exponentially, but pretty pretty sizably in terms of its relation to the world population. So definitely agree with you there, Mike. You mentioned even if for no other reason, advertising on Facebook. So just expanding on that for a moment or two, that's still from what you see from your perspective, where you're situated in the world, that Facebook ads and advertising on that platform is still an attractive or generally ROI positive or potentially ROI positive endeavor for at least some segments of our audience. Would you agree with that?
Most definitely so. A lot of our B2C clients, we still use Facebook as the primary advertising channel, and yeah, so far, obviously, there's with the whole situation with iOS 15 and how tracking has been limited, and now the Android 12 and 13 have also sort of made stricter norms into what can or cannot be tracked. So obviously, it's not as at least visibly from an advertiser's perspective or somebody who's actually setting up the targeting. You almost feel that you've lost some of the control that you had, or some of the specificity that you had when you set up the ads. So, but I think even with all of that, you can still get some pretty good ROI if you're targeting it right, and if you're letting the algorithm do its thing without tinkering with it too much.
That's probably a rabbit hole we could go down on another podcast episode, but that is absolutely, I think, a guiding light, if you will, for people who are using Facebook ads to adhere to that. One of the things that we also plan to touch on in this episode, Mike, when we're planning it out, talking about the rise of YouTube Shorts. It's definitely where I think we see the best opportunity, at least as it stands today, the best opportunity to monetize somebody's content there, if that was their goal, due to the war chest that YouTube has access to and that sort of thing. I think the eye opener for me, and I think this occurred probably in the late summer, early fall last year, was hearing my hero Gary Vaynerchuk talk about how he had advised his team to reconfigure their outlook on different platforms and channels and formats and so forth. And for a guy who really was probably Instagram heavy for years, demote that out of his top three and then formulate a top three based on number one, YouTube Shorts, number two, TikTok, and number three, Facebook. And I think over time he refined that into sort of Facebook Reels. That was kind of an eye opener. Just having consumed a lot of his content and seen him as active as he is on Instagram. What are your thoughts on, and there's a lot of overlap between these, but do you think, what's your take on and what's your advice for those who are like, hey, should I start publishing on YouTube? Should I have a YouTube channel, number one? Should I be doing long form YouTube videos still? And sort of in relation to that, should I be publishing YouTube Shorts and get more active on that platform? Where would that kind of rack and stack for somebody who didn't know where to start? Which platform do they start on? Which is their tertiary, their secondary, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So when it comes to YouTube Shorts, I'm sort of borrowing some ideas from one of the influencers that I look up to. This fellow called Marques Brownlee. He's one of the biggest YouTubers on the planet, one of the biggest tech YouTubers on the planet, and I've been following him for several years now. And on his podcast, I think he was discussing a similar topic about the future of YouTube and YouTube Shorts. And something very interesting that he mentioned is on why some of the biggest content creators online have risen from Facebook or have stuck with Facebook despite the rise of other channels, is the fact that nobody does content monetization better than them. So if you are a successful creator on YouTube, you stand to make much, much, much more money compared to being a successful content creator on any other platform at this point, especially when it comes to video. So, so since they've been doing that right, the successful content creators, even if their primary channel is TikTok or Instagram, they still are gravitating towards Facebook because of that. And then that sort of results in just better. I mean, just more ad revenue flowing in and things like that. So it's I'm not sure which way the cause and effect goes in terms of whether people are spending more on ads and that's why they're able to pay their content creators better, or the other way around. But in whatever whichever came first, but I think YouTube as a video platform is the most complete. So you get long form content, you get short form content, you get all sorts of content creators. It is a giant search engine that the other platforms do not have the capability of doing, at least yet. So I think with all of that said, if you are creating any type of video, YouTube is definitely, if not the first on the list, it should be among the top three, like Gary Vee mentioned.
Gotcha. I appreciate that, Mark. And, just respecting time for our audience and, try to keep this under 40 minutes. I want to pivot now to what really emerged at the very, very end of 2022. I mean, November 30th, I believe, was the release date of this software program called ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT, just in case somebody wasn't familiar, the GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. It's a chat, I'm kind of quoting from Wikipedia here. It's a chatbot launched by OpenAI in November 2022 and was built on their family of GPT 3.5 large language models. So it's a conversational AI system that literally, and I'm kind of speaking off of some usage. I played around with the tool, and I kind of want to set the table here and then get your thoughts generally on AI influencing marketing. I'll give some of mine too. Basically, you have a screen with a prompt. You type in whatever question or topic you want to talk about with ChatGPT, and it literally produces unique. It regenerates different responses for the same topic, so you're not getting the same thing over and over again. It literally produces responses that are very directed towards exactly what you asked it. So in a marketing context, you could say something like, write me 10 website headlines that are catchy for a finance and accounting business. And it will write 10 headlines that you literally see it like actively typing them out. It's quick, but it literally is like the cursor moving across the screen and putting up 10 potential headlines that are catchy because that's what you asked it for. If you said, write me 5 professional introductory paragraphs for that website, it will then, and it keeps building and sort of staying, I would say, contextual to everything you've asked it prior to that. So it's literally conversational, and even if somewhere along the way, if you say something to it that is contradictory, it will catch you, and it will learn that you are asking it something that's in conflict with something you just asked it. So it is very, very eerily flexible and almost seemingly sentient, I guess you'd say, for those who are maybe the most paranoid. And by the way, notable that Elon Musk is a founder or contributor to OpenAI, but has also warned about the dangers of AI. So that's kind of an aside. But here's the thing, guys. So for ChatGPT, and I want to turn it over to Mike here so I can get his thoughts in general on this type of technology. But for our audience, the interesting thing about a tool like ChatGPT is, if used properly, it can really break the logjam of creative block, difficulty producing content, let's say fast enough. It allows you to really kind of tap into this vast array of knowledge that the system has compiled, however it compiled it, and then move very quickly off of it. Like I said, for help building websites, writing captions, writing articles, putting responses together to certain things on social media and in a digital space. It really does, but fear of sounding a little bit cliched, it has the potential to be a complete game changer. And I think that if an audience member of ours was completely and highly and properly motivated, they might be able to use this tool as their marketing engine. But I think in more likely cases, the people doing their marketing, the entity handling their marketing, would be enhanced and would be empowered by this tool, not necessarily replaced by it, because there's still a certain limit to the context that the system can produce. when we're talking about dynamic situations, when we're talking about things that may involve sentiment or, a lot of different possibilities or nuances that this tool is just not going to have the awareness of. But in terms of producing text and producing sort of a knowledge base of information, it just does it so quickly and it does it so precisely that there's certainly a use for that tool in the marketing world. And I'm curious, again, not even had a whole lot of time for you to get exposure to it yet, Mike, but do you in general think that AI can be additive to what marketers are trying to do? Do you think it's going to take away? How do you think it can be corralled into being a positive element for both the marketing community and then anybody who's got a business who's trying to do marketing? How do you see that evolution going? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely additive. So I don't think it's a replacement for what people are doing. It's just the natural evolution of where things are going. And I think ChatGPT sort of opened everybody's eyes to what conversational AI is capable of. And if I'm sure I'll get around to playing with it soon, but the capabilities that it has they reach far beyond just creating content. It can write code for you. It can do a bunch of other stuff as well. So I'm really, really fascinated by where this is going. And the fact that something like this is publicly available, it sort of boggles my mind to think what other things are around the corner which are not made publicly available yet. So it's just as a fan of technology, it's something that I'm incredibly excited about, just to see where things are going and how conversational AI would make our life easier. Well, obviously, there's going to be changes, disruptions happening that would be accelerated by the publicity of what ChatGPT got. So it's going to be an interesting year now to see how all of this evolves and sort of impacts businesses directly. But purely, I mean, in its current form, obviously, there's still going to be a lot of human input that would be required to convert what something like a ChatGPT generates, and then converting into a content that adds even more context about your brand, about your audiences. So I think it is a fantastic starting point, especially for people who are looking to save a lot of time. So it's definitely something that I would not discourage people from using, because it's a tool that enhances their ability to produce more content, produce more quality content, and perhaps do the kind of research that they would not have the time to do themselves. So, but again, we're barely scratching the surface of what AI could do, not only for marketers, but just tech in general, and how marketing jobs and programming jobs and how all these sorts of jobs would be impacted by it. But I still think, as was the case with a lot of different technologies that came before this, it's going to be a net positive. I'm like I said, I'm biased towards new technology, and I'm more excited about it than worried. Let's just put it like that.
Gotcha. So I think, a couple quick clarifications. I'll give a closing thought on that, and then I want to sort of finish up with a look ahead to this year that we just entered a couple days ago. So basically, Elon Musk he was with OpenAI, but he resigned in 2018. So I just want to clarify that. So he's not with them anymore. And the other sort of prediction on ChatGPT that was kind of seismic is that it could replace or could create tremendous disruption for Google. And it just so happens there has been some reports of Google kind of reacting very dynamically to the emergence of ChatGPT. So just want to throw that out there. I think my closing thought on this, Mike, is that, we preach, particularly through all the episodes out there, volume, getting more content out there. I think something like ChatGPT helps somebody bridge that gap. It helps somebody get to that point a little bit quicker, a little bit easier, a little bit faster than they would have in terms of being able to be very prolific with what they're producing and putting out there. So I think if there was an immediate practical effect, it's the ability to produce more volume and to just kind of crank out more material to, let's say, populate a website or put out on social media or whatnot. Being relevant to your audience, being timely, being current, that's going to still be something they have to come up with on their own. ChatGPT is not going to tell them when they should be posting things or what type of topics they should be posting at certain times. I don't think it's going to be as refined for something like that, but it can produce the volume that they may not have been able to produce on their own. So, finishing up our session here, our podcast, what are some thoughts that you have towards this year? Is there anything in particular on your mind about 23 or that you think is going to emerge or could be an issue heading into this year, different from 2022?
I think you hit the nail in the head in terms of the topics that you chose for today. Is just the fact that short form video has well and truly arrived, and how that would impact all the turmoil that's going on with the TikTok in the US and then Twitter globally, and how that plays out. So I think that would change the landscape, or at least impact the landscape of what social media is doing these days. Then, prior to ChatGPT, I think Google had the best AI, and it's sort of the best conversational AI that's available to consumers, at least. And that is this will be a nudge to them and to other people who are working on AI to sort of pull their socks up and sort of really push where the technology is going. So I think the topics that you chose today, they very well encapsulated what I would be looking forward to in 2023. But the lessons are still the same. The lessons are still the fact that people need to be creating more content, not shying away from trying new technologies, seeing where the industry is going, and then. But overall, I think it's going to be an exciting year, as it always is, in terms of where content is going, where technology is going, and we'll. Obviously, with this podcast and our clients, we'll definitely be keeping a close eye on how things evolve.
Outstanding. So yeah, just wrapping up here in the last minute or so, I definitely agree with you that things are going to get, I think they're going to get more dynamic faster than ever, if that makes sense, with some of these things that we just talked about, particularly the last topic on the AI. And so definitely excited to see how that emerges, how different creators and influential people in this space kind of react to that and set the tone. And we can kind of convey that to our audience, help them take advantage of those things and kind of be first movers and that sort of thing in that area. But I want to kind of wrap things up here and just kind of thank the audience for the support that we've had across these 100 episodes as we wrap up number 100 today. We get back into a rhythm of publishing at least one or two a week. Super excited about the year ahead. Can't thank everybody out there enough for the support they've shown. Transform, the podcast, our digital presence in general. That's a huge deal to us. We stand ready to serve that audience with that assistance in digital marketing, website, social media, etc. I would love to hear from you guys, whether you reach out to us on LinkedIn, Facebook, under Transform, come to the website, transform.com. Of course, we'd love for you to subscribe to our podcast. And with that, any closing thoughts from you, Mike, as we wrap it up?
I think you summed it up pretty well. I'm happy that I got to do this, and it had been a long time coming. So I think we'll just thank the audience, and then hopefully catch you guys in the next one.
Outstanding. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mike, and Happy New Year to everybody. And thank you again for your support on this podcast. And we will talk to you again soon, probably later this week. Thanks a lot, guys, and have a great night.